Welcome to Stronger Schools.
I'm Matt Miller, Director of Education Leadership at Finalsite. I've had the privilege of leading, learning, and collaborating with some of the brightest minds in education as a former school superintendent for nearly 20 years. Now, I get to bring those voices to you. In today's voice, Dr. Gupta from Oakwood Schools, just close to Dayton, Ohio. One of the interesting things, and I have several of them, I have a Rolodex of interesting things about Neil Gupta. One of the things I think a lot of people in the education space have probably heard, read about him, seen him on social media and things like that. And I think a lot of people probably thought you've been a superintendent for 8 to 10 years. Nope. In fact, he's just in his first year as a school superintendent. Neil, welcome to the podcast. We are so glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I did have a conversation with someone the other day and said, I can't believe that. I know we'll talk about that a little bit later too, of maybe my journey. But Yes, it's been a long time coming. My wife and kids, with some of the strategic moves that we had physically moving from city to city, kind of said, you wait a little bit until the kids graduate and you become an empty nester sort of thing. And then it was the ability and the timing was completely right for this new job and first year as a superintendent.
Yeah, I don't think it was something that it's not like one of those things where you were looking for this position for 2 or 3 years and you finally got one. It had to be the right spot, the right time, right?
Yeah. So this past spring, we got two boys. One graduated college, one graduated high school. So it was kind of funny that around October last year, my wife, said it's time, you're allowed to start looking. In fact, my superintendent at my previous district came into my office around October, November, and he said, time for you to go. And I thought I was going to be fired. I thought he was firing me in a sense. And he said, no, he goes, I know what's happening at your house, know that it's time, and it's time for you to go and it's time for you to flourish. And, gave me the best mentoring for those years. And then just that even that sense of trust and believing in me gave me that sense that it's time for me to try this.
So you had the good advice from home, which takes the most priority, and then you had the good advice professionally that it's time for you to fly, time for you to go, and you have made a huge impact in a very short amount of time at Oakwood Schools. Why don't you maybe set the stage about Oakwood, tell all the people about it and the community, the district, and maybe some of the things that you're working on too.
Sure. So Oakwood Schools, just like you said, it's a suburb outside of Dayton, Ohio. It is 2,100 students, 2 square miles.
Wow.
I'm going to let sink in a little bit. 2 square miles, 2,000 students. It's a community with university professors, the medical profession. There are federal judges, plural, federal judges that live in here. And then obviously it's close to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So a lot of families from the Air Force. It's amazing. It's the students are, it's almost a little bit going back in time in a good way, as far as we've got these iconic school buildings, 2 elementary schools, a kindergarten building, and then a junior high and a high school that are connected to each other. And it's a walking community. We don't have school buses that bus students in, not in 2 square miles. So on a nice fall day.
Stop. You don't have any buses? I know, I was thinking maybe at 3.
We have 2. Just we have this year, 2 this year that we have to do some transporting from our 2 elementary schools to that kindergarten building. But it's a walkable community. So on a beautiful day, families are my job in the morning. One of my jobs, but in the morning is I'm drinking my coffee right outside this elementary school or the junior high or the high school, greeting families as they are walking their kids to school. It's the most healthy thing that you'll ever see. Just your stress level goes down because you just kind of think, what just happened here? Families are coming together. It's the centerpiece of the community. And it's amazing. The staff is amazing. Traditions and celebrations that happen here are long and withstanding. And people, when they come to Oakwood, their hope is to come to stay. And I'm already feeling that about our own family and our own situation. So From a work standpoint, I was named superintendent of, I think, about March of this past spring. And so I had this great onboarding experience. This previous superintendent retired in December. So they went through a search process and I think it was about March. So I had normal superintendents find out that they're going to get employed around July, right? Or August. I knew for about 5 months and had the ability to drive in and spend a lot of time in listening sessions and listening to our administrators and talking to our staff and really getting to know our students and our parents, even before I even got here into the community. And I think that really put me in a great spot rather than trying to just come in on August 1st and try to do the best I can with trying to understand the culture and the community demographics. As far as what am I working on, I think that anybody, superintendents, especially but school districts, there are 3 things that we look at. The first one is high student achievement and growth, and we want our students academically growing. And so really trying to get an understanding of what does that look like here, what are the celebration points that we have in the district, and what are areas that we might need to improve upon. The second one is safe school environment, and I think about safety being physical safety, but I also think about the social emotional health of our kids. And so what supports do we have in place for those? And then the third one is efficient and effective operations. So this idea about what does our finances look like? What do our facilities look like? How are we making sure that we're able to do the things from an infrastructure standpoint, leadership standpoint that we're able to do to make sure the 2 things function properly, the student achievement and then the safe school.
Nice. And so hitting academics, hitting the physical and mental well-being and safety of the kids and having the right facilities, that's sort of that's key right there. That's probably superintendency 101 as you laid it out. Hashtag One Oakwood. Did you bring that to the district, or is that something you inherited?
Yeah, so I didn't, and it's interesting. I discovered it. It wasn't necessarily used a lot in my research, but I noticed it from the social media platforms that were there. There are things that I have brought to the district even in this short amount of time, and it's interesting that I wanted the hashtag One Oakwood to be something that stays. I knew I had that, to your point, I had that opportunity of, do we level set new superintendent? Do I come in with a new hashtag and a new theme? I also wanted to, I'm going to say honor the past. I wanted to honor, and it is such a timely hashtag of One Oakwood. And somebody had even asked me, is that something you want to continue? And I said, I do. And I know where the history of it came from. I know it was based on the previous superintendent. I know the construct of the district, the community, our world right now, trying to figure out how to come together on sometimes differing issues and things. But I thought that that's just a great way for us to keep kind of this aspect of, from a classroom standpoint, from a community standpoint, how do we make sure that we are acting as one?
And aside from Dr. Neil Gupta, who's using it?
That's interesting. So we're using that on our social media platforms, and it's interesting. Our students are starting to really talk about that. They have kind of shared it with me in passing. Not necessarily from a social media standpoint that I've seen, but I know from a conversation standpoint it's been there. We did opening staff day T-shirts. We got T-shirts for every staff member. And that is on the front of the T-shirt, hashtag One Oakwood. So again, trying to make sure that that's, sometimes we think about things that are covert. That is something that's overt. We want everybody to be celebrating that hashtag.
I think messaging is a lot of sort of, again, tying into Superintendent 101 when you start in a brand new district, and for you, a brand new job in a brand new district in a role that you haven't had before, and sort of marketing not just the district, but yourself as well. And you've done a great job with that and some of the other things that you've done. So your blogs, I don't know what your hit rate is. You probably know that, but that's not something you just started this year. You've been doing that for a while, right?
Yeah, I've been writing blogs for a while. Usually though on my own personal professional website that I created called farthertogether.org. I can't say the last time I actually wrote something on that personal professional blog. Now my goal is to write 1 to 2 blogs a week for the school district through our district website, and that are spotlighting. My goal is to spotlight our students, spotlight our programs, spotlight our staff members or our community doing awesome things that I get to see and hear. And so there's been a shift in that, I think, as far as what am I trying to, who's my audience, I guess. Earlier, the audience was other educators and it was about leadership. This one is more, I would say, community based. And as far as I'll be honest with you, I want the world to know one Oakwood, and there are the great things that are happening in Oakwood, and come move. We got places for you to come move to if you want to be part of a great tradition of excellence in schools.
I still remember, and we have not prefaced any of the conversation that we're having right now, but I still remember the first text message you sent me, and I was a superintendent like 2 districts back. You were in your previous district. I don't even know what your role was there, and the topic doesn't matter, but it was like, hey, I'm Neil Gupta. I'm this. I need that. And it was like, wasn't a phone call. It was a quick text, and it was just sort of like a personnel thing that, we had kind of shared in common. And I'm like, I read it, and I was like very impressed with that. It wasn't like, it was bold in a positive way. It wasn't like, but, I was superintendent. I get this thing from a lower level administrator in a different district. Who's this guy? Some people could think that. But your presence and how you carry yourself is, I think, a good role model for others sort of in the role in education. And again, no matter what level in terms of a school administrator. So when we think about that and think about maybe your career path, can you share your career path in education with everybody?
Sure. Yeah. Career path. I'm going to give you 2 career paths. The career path that people normally share is high school math teacher, assistant principal. And then I was only in the assistant principal position for a year. Central office came to me and said, we want you to come to central office. And I kind of said, no, I don't. I need to be assistant principal for a couple years, principal for a couple years. And before I get to central office, they said, are you turning this down? And I said, no, I'm coming to central office. Let's go. So I went to central office. Happy there is the secondary director of curriculum. Did that for 8 years. Thought life is good. I loved the community that I was in. That was my hometown. I get a call from New Albany Plain Local School District, beautiful district, very high performing, to come and be a part of their district. I did that for 3 years. We lost a levy. It was devastating. And my position was cut, and Wow. It was the right decision. It wasn't personal. It was, to try to cut that much money in a school district. And so some central office positions had to go. And I didn't take it personally. I thought I'd have to be going on a national search of going somewhere else to another district, and luckily landed pretty close to that district called Worthington Schools. And I was there for 8 years. And that's that previous district that I was in. That's kind of the trajectory, right, that people kind of tend to think about. I guess I'm going to take your question in a different way. The different way is to, I guess, of kind of where I got to where I am, or where I think I still want to continue to go is, I love to read. I love to read leadership books. I love to kind of go that, but then you go one step further. I like to read the leadership book. And if you're impressing me, I want to go meet the author. I want to talk to the author. I think that sometimes we feel like you can't go talk to these people. The first time, for example, I read an article by Doug Reeves. I was like, someday I'm going to be able to sit in an audience. If I could ever go to one conference, I'll be able to just hear him speak in person. And that was my early goal sort of thing. Then all of a sudden it was, well, wait a minute here. If I'm going to make it to that national conference, then I'm going to be bold enough to go up and talk to him and have a conversation with him and ask him for his phone number or his email address, so I can follow up and ask him questions about things that go along with that. Those are things that people don't do. No. If you've met somebody like Doug Reeves will give you his personal cell phone number. I know I'm saying this, and it's not my cell phone number. It's Doug Reeves' cell phone number, but I know that he would be glad to talk to people and answer questions because he believes that much in education. I know that, for example, national speakers that come to conferences, here's the funny thing. Everybody thinks they're so popular and they must have dinner plans. Sometimes they don't have dinner plans. So I will find out who's coming to the conference, who's speaking, and I'll send them a direct message and say, do you want to have dinner? And then I get a one-on-one dinner with this person and develop a relationship and get their phone number and that sort of thing. I'm on social media. If all of a sudden I'm in a Twitter chat and I feel like, gosh, this person is just amazing. They're answering questions in this great way. They have this awesome profile. They seem to have this really smart kind of part right there. Can I get their phone number? Can I learn from them a little bit more? And I think that, again, and what I want people to hear is sure, there's some educational things you need to do on this side, but there's nothing that prevents people. And I'm not saying you got to stand up on the tables and you got to be this big extrovert. Just go up and take that extra chance to talk to people and share with them and develop a relationship with them. Because I think to maybe how I got your phone number, maybe I stole it from somebody else or something like that. But eventually you might be able to place to say, I got a question and I know who the expert is on that. And so you go out and reach out to them and you develop your network. And so I would say, how did I get to where I am? It's network building. You're always network building. I think that's a great lesson for any of us in education, probably outside of that a little bit too, but I think that's awesome. Wait, I'm going to cut you off. But I forgot the most important and funny thing. So I talked about going out to dinner and I talk about all these things. My wife, if she watches this, and my kids, they'll laugh and roll their eyes. I also keep an eye on who's coming to town and making sure that people know that my house is available if you need a place to stay. Oh, wow. I can't deny that there was a time where the doorbell rang. This is before the Ring, doorbell system. The doorbell rang and we didn't expect company. Who's coming tonight? Do we know who's? And I said, oh, I just remembered. So-and-so is coming to the house to spend the night because they're speaking at a conference tomorrow close to us. My wife goes, have you ever met them before? Never met this person in my life. Just direct message with them. Never even heard their voice. Just direct messaged and said, hey, listen, if you're coming in the area, let me know. So my kids are like, so they're sleeping in the guest room right across from where we sleep, right? I said, yeah, in the guest room from where we sleep. So even those things come into play. So if you are even driving or flying into the Dayton area, or you just heard me say, hey, gosh, come check out Oakwood. It's an amazing community. We have 2 guest rooms for you. Just Let me know. The Gupta Airbnb, or it's, you probably don't charge that much. That's kind of a yeah. We had, I forget who came in, Lavana Roth. She came came in once to the point where we had a food truck come to the house, and I invited like 30 other people from the Columbus area, and we just had food and we ate and we talked and hung out. Like that's awesome. That's like building relationships 101 too, right there, man. Those are great stories. That's awesome. Yeah. So I want to delve into this a little bit, and we've kind of already hit it, but you're in a unique spot where you are a new superintendent, never been superintendent before, and also going into a new district. And so a lot of times people come up through the ranks, as it were, and ascend to that seat, and they're homegrown, as it were. Maybe they didn't start there in their career, but they've been there for a few years, were, an administrator or assistant soup and moved up. You're going to a brand new district into a role that you've never had before. How hard was that? What were some of the easy points of that you could share for somebody that's not in those seats yet? Sure. I think what was easier for me was because of the moves that I had from other districts. So if I had just moved, if this was my first move to a new district, I think that there would have been a big learning curve. And I'll explain kind of what I mean by that. So I knew enough that, like, just because I have the title of superintendent doesn't mean like I'm going to come in and I know everything, or that I can copy paste what I did in my previous districts into this district. While there are things that I learned, and I think there's some best practices, they can't just be copy pasted directly from, well, this is how I did it there and how we're going to do it here. And I'm going to come in and save the day, like, some, knight riding on a horse. Instead, we have to be in a place of asking a lot of questions. So I didn't like it when new leaders came in and just kind of started enacting and implementing initiatives without, number one, asking a lot of questions, developing relationship and trust, and then leaning on and kind of figuring out what are everybody's strengths, what is the culture of this community, and taking maybe a best practice from somewhere else and figuring out how it might need to be modified into what the existing culture that happens here. So we still may want something to happen, but we still have to maybe augment and change it so that it fits what is the culture here in Oakwood. So relationships was key, coming in and really building relationships and asking a lot of questions, leaning on and determining, this isn't about me coming in and kind of joysticking people on this is how I want things to run or to fashion, but really stepping back to say, how do I help build this cohesive team, One Oakwood? How do we build a cohesive team? And how do I start to figure out how to leverage strengths of everybody else and understand what their strengths are so that I'm not trying to duplicate work?
Nice. Had any, what's probably like the biggest change you've made since you came to Oakwood? It used to be the old adage, wait until your first year's over. And then it sort of became wait until after winter break. And now I don't think you're a guy that sits back too long. So it doesn't have to be a big change, but what's one of those things that, in the past, maybe you would have waited, but you went ahead and jumped in on?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if I can say that there's been any big changes that have happened right now. I think that some of it is we just had one of our key district administrators resign to go to another place on the best of terms, a promotion, and she's closer to family. So the timing was right for her to go, and we wish her all the best of luck. But that means we're scrambling for a new district level position, right now. Back early in the summer, we had an elementary principal that left, and big shoes to fill, and had to do some key hiring. So key hiring, I think, has been something I didn't think I'd be doing in the month of October and November, is doing some of those things. I think that I think those are good opportunities, though, to take a look at that, to step back and say, what do we want to keep and honor and continue doing in some of those positions? And then what are some changes that we need to be thinking about, into the future? What does that look like from a large level view? So I think to kind of answer your question a little bit is what I bring from those other districts and from my national base is taking a position like that one and saying, okay, it's okay. None of us are ever replace the person exactly that where we came from. But at the same time, that's okay too. This is an opportunity for us to take a look at the position and step back and say, what can we learn and how do we make sure that we're looking at things more from a place of innovation, and how can we kind of take a look at things from a place of that. So I think that's been the biggest thing. I think the other one for me is just mostly just been trying to be very visible right now and getting to build those positive relationships with our students and our staff. I feel like I'm doing a good job of that, of trying to connect into the classroom of what's happening, so that when the time comes for some changes to happen, I'm better apt to do that.
Yep. You're building up your collateral as it were. If anyone follows you on social media, and if you're not, and you are on social media, you're missing out. Truly, Neil is one of the best. You can see that he's everywhere. You have this great ability to meld your personal life and professional life into almost one at times, not always, and they shouldn't be like that. But you involve your family and your Oakwood stuff and vice versa. And that's a hard balance sometimes, but you're really, really good at that. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. So, this is great. I appreciate you saying that, because I think that this is a good reason why, for me, why I chose not to become a superintendent earlier, was because I knew if I wanted to do it my way, I wanted to be all in. And to be all in means that I wanted to, people will say, I'll tell people that I don't have 2 kids at home anymore, but now I oversee 2,100 students. Like, they're my students. So two students are gone, but now I've got 2,100 students to be their cheerleader and their fan and their, be their excitement builder, be that person that they can kind of lean on. What that means is trying to be at events, not just during the school day, but into those evening hours. And so if I didn't have my wife, who loved coming with me and sitting alongside me, that this could be a different job, because there, in a good way, there would be guilt of, I need to stay home for this event because, I need to, keep a love on my wife. What's interesting is she loves going to events with me. When I'm tired, Jill sometimes, Neil, listen, hold on a second. You just went to that event and that event. You have to go to this next event because their kids are expecting it. It's only fair. So get your shoes on. Let's go. So she's pushing me to go on top of that. And what's been beautiful is the community I've seen this natural transition of, oh, that's Carrie, the superintendent's wife, to, oh, that's Carrie. Like, people like me, they love her. Like, they're already starting to love her, which is phenomenal. And then the same thing with my boys. They're both gone and not in the Oakwood area, but they'll even send me text messages of like, hey, we just saw that your student did this, and that's pretty cool. And it's stuff that I didn't even see yet. Like, they're beating me to giving props to our own kids. Back in the early summer, we do maybe every other year we go to Hilton Head on vacation, and I don't need to work on my tan. So I had asked the family, I said, can we do this crazy thing? I know that there's some alumni from Oakwood in that Hilton Head area. So can we do this alumni meetup? And they were like, okay, that's weird. We think it's weird, but let's go for it. And so they joined me, and and I'm saying this, it wasn't that we were in the car driving there and they were like going, Dad, this is weird and this is lame and you're so weird. They were like, Dad, this is going to be kind of fun. This is kind of cool. Let's go. So we get out of the car. There were about, 10 alumni there. And it was the coolest thing in the world. I hadn't actually stepped foot in Oakwood yet, but they were able to share stories. They were able to kind of talk and reminisce with each other. I got to just sit back and listen. They helped me kind of understand some of the traditions that I'll eventually had to learn about, which I thought was pretty cool. So University of Kentucky, my oldest son's at University of Kentucky. He's in that area working for UK hospitals. And I already kind of said, I'm going to wait for basketball season. I'm going to figure out how to do a tailgate before a basketball game. I think there are about 150 alumni. So eventually I'm going to be sending out an email that says, hey, let's find this place to gather and let's hang out for a little bit and just kind of create that moment right there. But I think that those opportunities have become fun for my whole family and me also.
I remember seeing the Hilton Head story online when you posted it. And it's one of my favorite Dr. Neil Gupta stories about you weren't even in the district yet. You're already doing alumni events outside coupled with your family vacation. I mean, who does that? But you pulled it off, and it was great. I mean, I think that's a great idea for other up-and-coming superintendents or current superintendents to do that. And so kudos to you. I was going to ask you about it because I had known about it. We talked about it before, but man, what a great idea, and just branching out and seeing everything. So how do you've got that, you've got the family component. What does your leadership team look like in terms of following you and some of the different things that you're doing? How do you weave that in?
Sure. So I think especially because this is a very tight knit group, what I found out was a couple great things, and I've learned this over time. Sustained leadership amongst the district level team has really helped out. They're a cohesive team. I went to the first leadership team meeting and I just observed. I remember I asked them back last spring, I said, can I come observe you? And they said, do you want to talk? And I said, I really actually don't want to talk. I really just want to watch and see how you function and work together. They're a very high performing team. And what I mean by that is because with the door closed, they can have good collegial conversations, push on each other. And I saw that and I was like so impressed with it. I thought, ooh, how are they going to walk out the room and kind of self-actualize this and put this into play and still be kind with each other? And perfect. Everything was perfect. So the district leadership team, number one, they care for each other. They are committed to the district. And I think that they're unafraid to be able to share with each other different insights and perspectives for us to get kind of a more clear picture of what's reality and what might be kind of the next steps we need to lead to. What that means to me is this idea of how do we collaboratively develop agendas for our leadership team meetings? How do we collaboratively develop where we're going to go into our conversations and the decision-making process? I, on purpose, held off on any type of book study or anything kind of for the first semester. I'm still because I've read 1,000 great books. I know how to lead book studies. But I don't know what this team needs. I don't know what we need from a chemistry standpoint for us to kind of move together. So they had done some existing work on the DISC leadership profile. And, I again, just like that hashtag One Oakwood, you want to honor things as they've done them. It can't be that you come in and you're going, I'm the new leader, and so because we're gonna throw everything else away and we're gonna start. That doesn't work. It won't work. So I believe in the DISC leadership profile. We're doing work around that. That is something I think that hopefully that they see. Okay, there's a sense of relief, continuity. Oh my gosh, like we get to kind of continue on this trajectory of where we're going on how we're going to get better while I'm still implementing some ways of how we can kind of tweak and modify and still move forward on how do we still think about benchmarking it. Like, here's where I do want us to go. How do we start benchmarking against districts at the state and national level? And then how do we get ourselves into a place of looking at certain areas that we can improve on that I'm already starting, kind of think through based on what I'm hearing from our community.
That's an amazing way to do it, because, I'm going to venture to say that I have, and probably you have, or at least we know people who have worked for superintendents that would come in new and basically say, we're going to do it my way, and here's what we're going to do, versus sitting back and seeing what they need and how things mesh. And so there's a huge lesson in that, I think, for superintendents, especially one who'd been in a district before, did something a certain way, and then goes into a new place. And so you can't do the same job everywhere. Because it's not the same. It's different, to your point, and the culture is different. And how do you open yourself up to that, and how do you mesh with that? So kudos to you, man. That is amazing. Do they ever run shotgun with you on events when your family can't make it? Are they doing the same types of things you are, kind of picking up your lead?
So the answer is yes. I kind of did. You lead by example, right? You model the way, and so I did say that, it's important that we are ambassadors to the community, that we're seeing our kids, our students we're in those different places. Of course, our principals go to different, events when their kids are doing different things. But, I'm noticing that more of our staff are going to things outside of what their, duty and responsibilities are, and they're posting those things, and they're more excited about those things. I took this from Dr. Trent Bowers, the superintendent at Worthington. He gave 100 blank cards to his leadership team, and there's about 50 people on the leadership team in Worthington. So he said, your goal is to write 100 cards over the course of a year. And if we do that, that'd be 500 cards out into 5,000 cards out into the community. So I did take that, with a similar fashion here in Oakwood, and I make it my personal goal to send cards out when I'm noticing students doing something awesome, staff doing something awesome. We have a in-service professional development in-service meeting on Monday with our staff. And part of my time of one of my sessions is that I'm going to ask everybody to write a card that they can kind of share out there. So again, trying to model, give time, give a place, so that people are doing something pretty cool. But can I tell you that you just said, so the question was, have you seen like people going out to different things and when my wife's not able to come? So earlier this week, my wife stayed behind, and she's allowed to every now and then. She stayed behind. So I went to an event myself, sat in the second row at awards night, and I was fine. Like, I'm good. I'm all right. I know how to. I'm an adult. Right. I had a student sit down beside me, 6th grade student sit down beside me. I didn't think anything of it. And I kind of said hi to him, had a little bit of small talk, kept talking. And, he kind of grabs my shoulder. How's the transition to Oakwood been? That's got to have been tough for you. You came to a new community. So I answered his question. Thought, pretty cool kid. Asked that kind of high level question. I kept looking and still waiting for the event to start. Get that tug again. Do you have kids at home? Tell me about your family. So I got to answer questions about that. Asked about my pets, if I had pets, asked all this kind of stuff, whatever. I get home that night, check my phone. His mom sent me a text to say, just wanted to let you know, he noticed you. We were all sitting behind you a couple rows. He noticed you came by yourself. He had some previous things happen in his life where he felt alone and afraid and didn't want anybody to have that feeling. So he took it upon himself to come and sit beside you and thought he'd provide you with some company. So I'm not saying I created that. I did not create that, but that hit my heart on. That's what I want us to kind of all be in a community of doing, like that we're all looking out for each other and being in that place. So that's a great story to share of what our goal needs to be.
You created it. You made it. You let that kind of happen. I don't know if "let's" the right word, but you foster that type of culture and that kind of environment. What an awesome story. Just to hear. That's got to make you feel good. It makes me feel good just hearing it.
Goosebumps. Goosebumps.
Kudos, man. That's when you know that, like, when you have one of those bad days, you need to remember that one. That's the thing you need to remember on those days, that you do make an impact. I would say this about you too, as we wrap up a little bit. I consider you a friend, but I also consider you a leader among leaders. And that might be awkward to hear for someone to say to somebody in their first year of a superintendency, but I really think that the sky's the limit with you. I think there are a lot of days ahead of you in terms of providing leadership, not only to your district at Oakwood, but on a national level as well. I know there's several books in you that I can't wait to read and to learn more about some of the things that you do. And I know all of us in education feel that same way. So thank you for that. And thanks for being a part of this. I have my usual 2 way off the cuff sort of human interest questions. All right. You ready for this?
Ready.
First album, CD, record, tape you ever bought with your own money?
That's easy. That's like Michael Jackson. That was Michael Jackson.
Which one? Thriller?
I think it was the Thriller one.
Yeah. All right, I wasn't sure. All right. And then kind of tied into that, first concert you ever went to?
So first concert wasn't until I was a junior in high school, Wittenberg University in Ohio, Violent Femmes.
Wow. How about that? You get some credit for that too.
Right.
Well, I would not have guessed that.
No, I know.
That's good. Awesome. Well, Neil, thank you so much for being a guest on the Stronger Schools podcast. We really appreciate your advocacy for educators across the country. And thank you so much. I'm hoping, a year from now, 8 months from now, we'll have you back on another episode just to sort of catch up. All right.
Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thanks for your time.